Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Mike Adniel.
Hey.
Hello, everybody joining us. Welcome to another webinar session. I hope everyone's having an amazing Tuesday. Today, we're here with Mike Adniel to talk about getting started in animation. We're going to allow a few seconds just for the chat and the room to fill. We're also transmitting this live on Facebook. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Facebook friends. Be sure to send us your questions via Facebook. Tom will send them to me here, and I'll make sure that Mike gets to them. I'm your moderator, Elizabeth Garcia. I'll be moderating this about an hour and a half webinar with Q&As. Please use the Q&A Zoom function here on just below where it says Q&A. We will not be reading the chat for questions since the chat is mostly for networking and making friends. If you have a question for Mike, I will make sure to get it to him. Questions will not be saved for the end. I will be asking my questions throughout. We also have, for our followers in North America, an exclusive welcome offer, a $50 off Wacom One at B&H, one of our partners, using the code Wacom Webinar. Please make sure to take advantage of it. And I'm excited to leave you with Mike Adniel. As you guys know, Mike is an animator for The Simpsons. He will be showing us a little bit about his work, how he got started in animation, and many other things. Hi, Mike, how you doing? Take it away. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
All right. Great. How you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing well.
We're doing well. We're moving along. Spring's here. It feels like a brand new mood, like spring cleaning. Like, I don't know. It feels a little bit better than last year during this time.
I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Is that working? Or is that
I can see your screen. Yes.
Okay. I think I'm sharing the wrong screen though. Or am I not?
You're sharing your start cycle, what you were showing us earlier.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, it is the right screen.
All right.
All right. So do we want to start off with any questions that we have? I mean, you kind of introduced me already, so.
Well, I introduced you very briefly. For those of you who are not familiar with Mike, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you want to talk about today.
Sure. I started at The Simpsons at 18 years old. I've been there ever since. I did take a brief break from the show. I went back to school to learn 3D animation. I worked in video game industry. I worked on NBA 2K16 and Mafia 3. And then after that, I came back to the show because I just really miss drawing. I love working with computers, but drawing is definitely my passion. And I'm just here to talk about some, beginning advice for anyone that wants to get into animation and what kind of thing companies look for and so on. A little bit tricks and tips here and there.
Thank you, Mike. For those of you who want to follow Mike on social media, he goes by I Draw Homer because he does Homer all the time. But I will leave all his information in the chat in case you want to follow along. You should. He's often streaming and sharing tips on his social. Where are you more active, Mike?
I do Twitch as well, but that's more like video games. But all my art I do live on Instagram.
Awesome. Okay, and today you're going to be showing a little bit of, your tips to getting started. But we want to get some questions out of the way.
Okay.
What do you work with? What are your favorite programs and hardware that you use every day so that we know your preference on that front?
So at home, I use the Cintiq 24 Pro. That's the one I like because it's nice and big. It feels like it's actual size paper or animation paper that we used to use. And the program we work with, it's called Toon Boom Harmony, which is, it can handle rigged characters and traditional animation for hand-drawn stuff. So it's really diverse and pretty high tech.
We love Toon Boom. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And is this something you consider like maybe industry standard to use this software and
The
to work?
software, yeah, definitely every show that I know of definitely uses the Storyboard Pro from Toon Boom and Harmony. Like these two go hand in hand.
So everyone considering entering animation should seriously look into learning these and feeling very comfortable in these.
Yes. I mean, unless they plan on just doing like CG, then definitely Maya for sure.
All right, take note, guys, depending on what you want to go into, there's several things, but you went into just pure animation.
Yeah. When
And
I started, we were still on paper.
okay, the good old days.
Yeah.
Is it necessary, Mike, for current aspiring animators to still, know the foundations and know the
Oh,
basics?
definitely 100%. Just the
So you
fact
do,
that, so if you could do it manually, it'll be that much easier for you to do it in CG. Like, because
do
you have an idea of the fundamental behind what you're creating.
right? Do school programs, do current animation programs enforce that in the curricula?
The school I went to Noman, which is in Hollywood. They have one traditional animation class for anyone who's doing CG in their program. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so anybody who's learning CG still has to take that traditional animation class. But it's simple stuff. It's like the bouncing ball and like little acting stuff here and there. Nothing crazy.
How people entering the animation world, how much of a prerequisite is it to go to animation school, to complete an animation program, or do you know of many
I mean,
self-taught?
I didn't when I first started. So I guess if you know what you're doing, because I had an internship, which was probably like the most important thing about me being there. And during that internship, I kind of got to learn hands-on of, their process, what to do, how things work there. So I kind of got in through there. But going back to school, I learned way more about fundamentals that helped me further my, it kind of complements your talents.
Gotcha. Well, awesome. I'll stop asking so many questions and let you do your presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, this one I had prepared for you guys. I'll try to ask everybody in chat to see if they could see which one of these crosses the finish line first.
All right, guys, he's gonna play us something. People on Facebook, pay attention. Look at this little cycle here. Mike wants you to know, which one do you think crosses the finish line first? People in the chat, let us know. I know I got it wrong. Lucas says same time. Joe says purple. Karen says green. Christopher Garcia says all of them at the same time. Jose says the orange one.
Yeah, so they're
Well,
all the same. Most people got it. This is just an example of how important, because like people think timing and they think spacing. They're totally different things that are used totally different times. So these are all timed the same way. But look at the spacing of these. So at the very end, they all cross at the same time. But depending for spacing is very like, it's one of the most important things in animation because that makes speed. It can make something look very heavy. It can make something look very light. So like
and
that green one looks really fast, so it looks really light. The red one looks slow. It looks like it'll be something heavy.
and this type of timing and tempo and all this, you were telling me earlier that it helps you develop the tone and your style in your animation.
Yeah, so it you can think of it as characters. Uh, I just use these balls just to make the example, but characters that are lighter will have like quick movements, and characters that are like heavier, they'll have like heavier movements. They'll be timed slower, and that can go for every limb of the body too. So if you're drawing characters that has like a backpack or it's going to move differently and have different timing, so part of the difficult part of animating characters is every single part of them has to be treated with this kind of concept.
Right.
And I was gonna do a live one for a bouncing ball. Just a quick example.
Is this something that animation students learn pretty early on as
Yeah,
they're
this is like super fundamental stuff that everybody should know.
but it's something that carries, a certain weight because it's a concept that you're gonna use over and over,
Yeah,
You never stop.
literally, that's why every class starts with the bouncing ball,
Yeah.
because that translates into everything basically. That concept translates into characters, into acting, and the way they go into their expressions, the way they move, the way they pick up something. Like everything's a bouncing ball. Like I was told that in the beginning too, and I didn't get it until I actually got into working more in CG. Then I'm like noticing like, oh, okay, so this curve is acting just like the bouncing ball, like except it's an arm instead of a ball, you know?
Yeah. I, this is maybe the third or fourth webinar that I do on basics of animation. I've
Uh-huh.
done more advanced storytelling classes with Travis Blaze, and they
Oh,
all
okay.
they all start with that, the bouncing
Yeah.
ball exercise, and it's very, I guess, it's a great learning point, a starting point for story.
So let's say we have a light one. We'll start up here. You turn this on. It's gonna gradually go down because it's so light. Then it's gonna go fast. It's gonna smack the ground. Come back up.
So you're doing all of your drawing and everything directly on Harmony.
Yeah.
How much did you dedicate, how much time did you dedicate just to work on your sketching and your drawing?
I always have a sketchbook with me. So I'm doodling or drawing all the time. Like it never stops. The best thing for people to do is have something they're drawing, because like if you draw mostly from your mind, you could be doing something wrong, and your muscle memory is going to get used to that, and you'll be continually doing it wrong. If you draw from life, you're always learning. So like I remember when I was a lot younger, I used to have so much problems with feet and hands, and I would just draw them from memory, thinking, okay, if I keep practicing, like I'll get it right. But I was practicing wrong because in my mind, I didn't know exactly what they look like until I started drawing for like life drawing and stuff, and then that practicing from there helped. And if you don't have life drawing like access, you can just always go online. I know it's gross, but you can just search feet. And you can
Right.
start drawing. Just make sure you're on the right sites.
So never stop drawing, no matter how serious you are about animation and telling stories, without a good sketch, without good, storyboards.
Let's see.
Yeah, I was always impressed, when I work with you and Mike Morris, just how much you guys spend just drawing. Just
Yeah.
the sketch, you don't take notes. It's like sketch noting, or yeah, most of your notes are photos or pictures.
Yeah.
I have a question from Jordan Weaver.
Sure.
Is Adobe Flash Animate generally recognized as a good software to know in animation, or is it mostly Toon Boom?
In the industry, it's mostly Toon Boom. I don't know of any studios that is Adobe Flash. I know a lot of like people that you do their own cartoons on YouTube and stuff like that. They use Flash, but as an industry standard, I've only seen stuff from Toon Boom being used.
Awesome.
I'm gonna try to do the same timing, but for a heavy ball.
So you were talking to me about, some of the basic things you have to do, start in animation. Obviously, knowing the software, having a strong affinity for story, being a good observer. And you also discussed, the importance of developing your own style. How often does this happen early on? Is this something that happened to you early on, or must a student wait until, a while before you can say, okay, I have style now. This is my signature style.
I mean, style is something that develops naturally. You can't just go in there and do it. You know what I mean? It really comes from inspiration. So find things that inspire you, find artists that inspire you, and kind of take from them. And then that's usually how you get your own style. Is you take like, oh, I like the way this guy draws hands, so you take that. I like the way this guy draws like eyes, or how this person draws like feet, and you kind of take everything that you like from different artists, and then you kind of make it your own. That's how most people develop their styles, is from what they
Right.
like.
But how important is it? Like, I know it's important for a lot of people who are working in independent projects, they have to stand out from the crowd. But when you're working like your case, you're working for a studio where these characters are developed for you.
Yeah.
So you still have to have your own style no matter what. You
Right.
have
I
to
mean,
worry about developing your own style to enter the animation industry, because you can't
right.
enter it if you don't stand out.
Exactly. And like I said, that comes from other artists that you like. Because most people won't pick the same things you pick from other artists. But yeah, if you have a strong style and strong animation, like you'll stand out, because a lot of people tend to draw things that everybody else does. And you're totally right. If you have your own style and it's strong, you definitely stand out like amongst the crowd.
Right. So even if, eventually you'll end up working for a studio where you're gonna maybe not use your personal style in your projects, you want to
Uh,
have personal style and work on developing it, because you
yeah,
want to stand
like
a chance.
on our show, there's people that have different, not character styles, but animation styles.
Right.
So there's certain people that can handle like this kind of acting really well. Let's say there's a action scene, they're like, oh, this guy's really good with action, we'll give him that shot. Like there's a few animators who are really good with emotions for the characters. So some of the more emotional shots, they always get those to those artists, because they're really strong with giving emotions to characters.
Would you suggest that people starting out pick, one of those things to become really good at? Like if they say,
I
I'm
would
gonna do
say,
bubbly really well, or I'm gonna do action really well.
yeah, I would say learn them all. Try to be a generalist first, and once you get in, that's when you start to like hone on your skill and be like, okay, I really like this. Like, try to get noticed for that in that studio, because they
Awesome.
want to make sure you know how to do everything, not just good at one thing.
Oh yeah, of course. You want to be able to do everything, but you want to, what are you known for? Like if somebody says,
uh,
oh, we need this, let's call Mike.
but I get a lot of action stuff. So like acting wise, I could do it if I have to, but I like more big movements, like characters jumping or running, stuff like that. Like that's what I have fun with, like more action stuff. But there are certain things that I can't do very well. It's like subtle emotional acting. Like that's hard for me.
Yeah, I was talking to the Brankoff brothers once, and they told me that animators, some of the most important training they get is just by watching movies and watching
Yeah,
good actors, because so much of their work derives from good acting and good
yeah.
storytelling.
I mean, basically, that's what we are.
Right,
We're actors, except we're acting through our drawings and not to the camera.
right.
Well, sometimes we do. If sometimes we film ourselves
So
for reference.
would you say that a strong love for story and a strong sense of creative direction is needed to be in a good
I
animated
mean, definitely story, yes.
story?
Because if you don't know what you're animating or why your character is doing this, it's just gonna look very generic and not true to the plot of what you're doing.
Yes. Travis Blaze will agree with you guys. Story, story, story. I'm going to share a little link here in the chat,
Sure.
because I did a webinar with Travis Blaze that talks all about story. So you can look at it later and get inspired about.
And Travis is awesome too. I love his work.
Yes, he's amazing. He's a great guy. So is Mike Morris and the Bancroft brothers. People I've been mentioning here, follow them.
Yeah.
They're just great, legendary animators, and I love them. Great storytellers. And Heather Horton, you were talking earlier about using references and using live.
Hmm.
How important are references to you whenever you draw?
Very, because gestures are like in the human body. This is just talking about human, because I know there's like animation with animals and stuff, but even that translates to those things. So like if someone's sad, you know how to draw that in the body, because a good life drawing model will, show emotion with their poses. So if you can translate those, because sometimes, people will just draw somebody with a sad face. Like, here, I'll just show an example.
Show us your sketching skills, Mike. You're just saying how much you practice. Let's see.
So let's just do a little really simple guy.
So sad.
He's just sad, right? But if you were to take that and change his gesture a little bit,
He's hunched over now.
yeah, and even have its face go down.
On
Yeah,
Facebook,
that's already like, because you have that arc in the back and he's more straight up here. Like
mhm,
you can tell this is already more sad. Like he's more hurt here than there. And you get these with like gesture drawings.
right.
And you can even
Yeah.
do this in like coffee shops. I'm like, some people don't like it. I've heard stories that friends that were drawing in like Starbucks and like they get yelled at for not asking permission to draw people. But if you go to the park and airports or whatever, you draw people, most of them won't care. But it's a great way to kind of see like some people are like impatient. You can tell they're angry. It's stuff like that that really helps get your acting skills.
Yeah. Well, you talked about, going out there and observing from live and using that as a reference.
Yeah.
On Facebook, they're asking if you know of any good reference websites for animators.
There was one called Reference, and I don't know if that's still a website. I can check right now. Reference.
What about you guys in the chat? Do you know of any cool reference website out there that maybe Mike doesn't know about? I know that ideally, because you're animators, you want to watch people moving. So maybe this is more of maybe it's not an image bank, but a video bank. I don't know. Like
Yeah, this is
or
what it was, but I don't know if it's still in existence.
Gabriela Stafford says that Pinterest, she's using Pinterest. And it's
Okay.
I use Pinterest so much too for sculpting. But yeah, what do you guys use on Facebook?
So one good one is called endlessreference.com.
Endlessreference.com.
Yeah.
Take note, team. I think it's great. But as things become more open, I encourage you to go to coffee shops and watch people. People watching is great.
Yeah. Even if once things get normal, hopefully soon, theme parks are the best. Like take a sketchbook if you like go to Disneyland or any theme park. There's a wide variety of expressions there, and parents that are sick of being there want to go home. Those are fun to draw. Kids like being excited. Those are fun to draw.
Yes, I bet. Just almost any corner. I bet if you just stand in a corner, you can so many characters. Well, developing your style using references. How about, once you have developed your style and you have enough work samples, you're trying to get out and find projects. That means you have to prep a portfolio. And we get a lot of questions about prepping a killer portfolio, but the more I ask artists about the killer portfolio, I think the key is to have a very flexible portfolio that you you can adjust, but I'll let the expert answer. What makes an animation portfolio a good one?
It depends. It depends on what you're going for, what studio you're applying for. Definitely know like, let's say you want Pixar. Uh, know what they're like. Like, look at all their movies. Like, what are they? They're a company that seems to be so on like acting and emotion. Like every movie they have like makes people cry. So I would like, let's say you're applying for there. I would have maybe two or three really powerful acting pieces where a character goes from happy to maybe like sad in like a line, or have no line and just show emotion through like just physical, like no sound. And then towards the end, I would put some action stuff, and just to show your range. Like, okay, this guy's not just a face animator. He could do other stuff, but definitely cater to where you want to go.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
So would you suggest that um, if you're starting out as an animator to not like fall in love with your portfolio and want to keep it like, this is my portfolio for the
yeah.
next year. Like,
And you
no,
want to you want to keep them short. Recruiters don't like looking at like 5 minutes of demo reels. If you can keep it like within a minute to 2 minutes, that's what they like.
that's another thing that I was going to ask you. For animation, obviously portfolios
Yeah.
they're different than traditional
Yeah.
portfolios.
So these days they want websites.
Right.
Nobody mails in there. I remember the day when you're supposed to buy the portfolio, mail it in.
I know.
Sometimes you don't get it back. But
I know. Very expensive. New
um
portfolio.
so on the website you would have your demo reel, your main one, like I said, catered. And then you would have like another page for your life drawing, and they want to see sketches. They want to see that you're able to draw and express your ideas with a pencil too.
So for an animation portfolio, you say, don't just have animation, also showcase your illustration chops.
Yeah, definitely they want to see that. They want to see life drawing. They want to see, uh like figures. They want to see figures, and they want to see gesture drawings. Because that's really important. That it shows that you understand how the body works and like mechanics to animate, or else it's for nothing.
Is it valuable if you're an aspiring animator who already has a story to include your own story and comics in your animation piece to
um
highlight your story, you know, strengths, your story chops, since
I
it's
mean, again, if you're going for like, that would be something for storyboard.
okay.
But if you can show, like, convey a story with your animation, that's just a plus.
Well, if somebody is applying for a storyboarding
Right.
position, you would want to see,
Like, you would want to see, like, they like seeing, they would want to see it as a reel as well, so not just panels.
okay,
So you would maybe take it into After Effects, or if you have Toon Boom storyboard, you could actually make a movie out of it. They'd want to see that movie as boards.
right. So for
Yeah.
you, for instance, when you were starting out, did you have any sort of storyboards in your portfolio, or you just focus
No,
on?
I just had a portfolio full of drawings that I did. And then during the internship, I learned their process of animation, and then I took their animation test. And keep in mind, most of these places will give you tests.
Right.
So like Pixar, I think gives you a couple of tests, 3 shots you have to do for them. And then after that, you have to come on like as an intern.
Are these internships often paid or unpaid?
I think now they are. Back in the day, they weren't.
And are these tests like they give you, I mean, they're time consuming, are they paid or?
Yeah, those, I think they pay you for those too.
Okay, because nothing stops them from using it,
Right.
right?
I know some companies don't, but they give you, their tests are really short, so it shouldn't take you
Right.
too much. They just want to see your ability.
That's good. Those are good
Yeah.
companies. Nobody should have to do a whole project as a test. That's great.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my
Usually
God.
there's really short scenes to animate. They'll give you like an objective your character has to do, and you just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Um,
obviously they look at how long it took you to do it too. So
oh yeah, that's another thing, when you're starting out, how much do you have to weigh at being fast versus being good?
uh I think they like a balance of both.
I know, right?
Because we have people that are extremely like talented, like they animate beautifully, but they take a while, and like it looks really great, but also it causes problems because the shot's not getting in. And there's people that are super fast, but the shots have to be worked on later because they went too fast, they rushed it. So that goes to somebody else who has to correct their stuff, or they get it back and have to redo it.
Are you known as a slow animator or a fast?
I think I'm in between.
You're in
I'm like
between?
right in the middle where I should be.
Karen wants to know if you are left-handed.
I am, yes.
Is it harder for you to find tools?
No, actually, that's the great thing about the Cintiq 24 Pro is that the remote is, you can move it. It's not on the.
Oh yeah, you can put it
So
everywhere.
my mistake not my mistake, but a bad habit I had from my other one was it has buttons on both sides. So I would kind of lean and it hit like one of the buttons with my left arm. But now I
Oh,
can just move it off and just have it onto the right.
that's right. And if you are a tablet user and you are a lefty, you can also change the settings. So there's always ways.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ashiel Fernandez is wondering, what do you think about OpenTunes software? Are you familiar with that?
I have not heard of OpenTunes. Is
All
that
right.
2D?
I don't know. Team in the chat, are you guys familiar with OpenTunes software? I'm not, and Mike is not, but Ashiel wants to know what you guys think about it. Let's see. I have not heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one.
All right. Let's see if the chat can help us, or people on Facebook. Abril Velez wants to know, have you ever participated in the 11-second club?
No, I never. I've tried to every month. Well, I can't say every month I haven't tried, but like every once in a while I try, but I always get bombarded with work and I can never finish one of those things.
Okay.
I mean, you think about it, it's not that long, but for animation, 11 seconds is a very long time, especially if you're doing it hand drawn like traditional animation.
Right. Thank
But
you.
yeah, I've attempted it, but I've never finished one.
Well, maybe you should. Ashiel Fernandez, OpenTunes software, the chat is telling us that it's a 2D and free open source program. And Lucas says that he thinks it's a good one. So we have some.
Okay.
Thank you for.
I'll have to check that out.
Check it out, OpenTunes software. And Sydney, since you were mentioning the animation program you went to, and you are very in the know, because I know the industry is very small. Do you know which colleges have good animation programs that you may recommend?
I think, well, in California, it's you either go to Noman, Pasadena Art Center, or CalArts. So those are the three places in California that are connected with studios. So their internships often are done through people that work there in the school, and they have contacts everywhere. Like I got my internship because of our school's contacts. Like they sent us to these places to work. So when I worked at that 3D place and I did the video games, is because of Noman put me there, like after I graduated. So like obviously CalArts is highly connected with Disney. I mean, Disney owns it. So a lot of people that I work with now went to CalArts.
Let's note that, these studios have, partnerships with these universities. So it's not really a reflection that, this program, is superior than others. It's a partnership. So there are other amazing programs that are not affiliated with studios. Mike is just familiar with those.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in California, so those are the big three.
But that's not to say that if you guys are watching from other parts of the world or not in California, that you can get top-notch education in animation in alternative programs. You don't have to.
Like I've heard RISD is really good. I've heard.
Which one?
RISD.
Breezy?
That's on the East Coast.
Right.
And if you're from Toronto, Sheridan is really good for animation. A lot of great animators came from there.
Very nice. I recommend that if you're just starting out and you want to even just see if you're going to be cut out for this, it's a lot of online programs that you can
Yeah.
check out. Just an array of them. We're welcome. So I'm not going to recommend anyone. We're very agnostic to all brands, but we do have some amazing artists that we work with who have their own little teaching programs. So I encourage you to check out. And Mike Adney, I think your Twitch should become educational, maybe.
I think I play too many games for it to
Oh my
change.
God. So Juan Palacios is wondering, Mike Adney, what part of animation was the most difficult for you to learn?
Full body animation for me was very difficult at first because growing up, I would always draw faces and expressions, and that's the part I focus on when it comes to design. So when I first started and I had to do full body animation, like I had a lot of difficulty with that. But again, like a lot of life drawing helped me. Gesture drawings help. Like I can't stress enough how much that helps. Just going to life drawing sessions. And if you can't go in person, again, there's like websites that have, quick gesture drawings. Like the screen will change like every minute. You can set your timer and just do little fast doodles, like, just do a half hour a day, and that's all you need.
Yeah, there's also amazing, contests and drawing prompts. I know right now there's, we're like March of Robots just wrapped up. We're entering May and we're going to have Mermay. So if you're someone who needs some sort of prompt to draw and practice, there are a lot of little communities and initiatives that can get you to draw every day as well. Lucas is asking, when looking at Toon Boom software, would you recommend Essentials or Advanced for beginners?
Probably Essentials. I would actually get a demo, a trial, and kind of that's where you learn. I would get a trial of the Essentials and see if that's what you need. I think for them it lasts 21 days.
All right. Joe Castillo is saying in the chat that he got to test all three, and the advanced is so much better, he said.
Yeah.
So, but if you're a beginner and you're still unsure, Lucas, maybe just start with a trial.
There's one free one out there called Flipbook.
Flipbook.
Yeah, I want to see if that's still free, actually.
There's so many free tools, and I think it's wonderful. And I have found that the animation community, the animator community, is very good at sharing all their tips. And Sketchbook Pro is free, and I used it to do to do 2D animation. Joe Castillo is sharing that. So that is true. Sketchbook Pro is free, and it's great. Didn't you used to use Sketchbook Pro, Mike?
I use that for like just designing, like drawing, sketching.
Right.
Yeah, I mean you can do animation in that, but it's a little difficult because it's linear, and you can't really time out your drawings as far as frames go.
Right.
I mean you can, but it's a lot more like difficult. Like it's a lot more manual. Where we have these sheets right here. It's called, well, we call this an X sheet, really. So this is how we do our frames. Like we move stuff around a lot easier, copy and paste frames a lot easier that we need to. But yeah, you can do it in Sketchbook, but it's a little more, you have to take a little more steps to do something you can easily do on here.
Awesome. We have a few questions here. Maybe you know this answer, maybe you don't, Mike, but Nick is wondering, can you still work from Canada if you get a job with Disney or any company in the US?
I'm not 100% sure. I feel like now, maybe. But I know Disney is in-house, and I'm not sure how they do stuff with freelance. I think that's a whole other department. Like I'm not familiar with any kind of freelance from Disney. So yeah, sorry, I don't know that the
Yeah,
answer
it's
to
a
that
little bit
one.
tricky, Nick, because there's, migratory things
I
and
mean, I know they
companies.
hire people from other countries to come work here, like work
Yeah,
visas,
pretty sure
but
people can work remotely on projects. I know of people in Brazil currently working on projects, you know,
yeah,
with teams in Burbank. So,
yeah, yeah, unless they outsource it, like a lot of the TV stuff they outsource,
right.
but all the features are mostly done in house in studio.
So I guess that brings me to another question that I've heard, over and over in other panels. Do you have to be in the US to find a good opportunity in animation? Or has the pandemic shown us that remote work is the way to go and it doesn't matter where
Again,
you sit?
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I haven't been in the studio for a little over a year now, and the
Right.
show has been going fine.
Right. Yeah. I think this, although it's changed our lives forever,
Yeah,
it's also shown companies that digital tools can help us stay connected and work very seamlessly.
right. And all our meetings are done with like teams, so everybody's in the
Yeah,
meeting. Everybody can present, what they're doing.
I
It's
know.
it's kind of like being in the same room.
I haven't seen Mike in 2 years and we're working together right now.
Yeah.
That's nice. Um, let's see. Jose wants to know, I think you already covered it, but maybe you can go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
What animation methods are you most familiar with? I know you mentioned action, but what are you most
Um,
familiar with?
by methods, what do you mean?
Jose, can you write to me again in the Q&A and tell me what you mean by methods? And I'll get back to your question. And then Andy wants to know, can you please break down how you lay out a Simpsons scene? Like how you flesh out what the boards have already given you.
I mean, I can't show Simpson stuff, but
Right.
like let's say,
Use an
so
example of something else, but
sure.
yeah.
So
Yes,
let's
right, guys.
say,
I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the show. Yes, Mike Neil does work at The Simpsons, but obviously, um, he's under NDA.
yeah. So board panels usually look like this. Two people talking, and then let's say this person has to run. Over there, right? So we take that and we make it, let's say, like drawing size, and then we draw in like the horizon as a character layout. This is what I do, and I flesh out these characters. So let's say this person just happens to look like Homer, and then we'll do all these poses between this and that. Um, we don't do full animation; we do keyframes and
Okay.
breakdowns. So we'll usually not do in between. So we'll draw like the key poses, the breakdowns, and all the acting that's necessary to get the scene across. But storyboards are just there for staging, basically, for us to tell us where the character is going to be,
All right.
or how the camera is going to move, and so on. And it's our job to fill in all the blanks.
That's a really hard job.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mike. We have some questions from Facebook. Thank you, people, friends on Facebook. So glad you're watching there. Let's see. Tom Wolfie. I took various digital animation and illustration classes in junior college, but never got opportunities for actual internships. Should I give up on pursuing an animation career altogether?
Definitely keep trying for internships. Are you providing them with like an animation reel, or just applying just with a resume? That's an important question too. Like, are you showing them stuff? Where
Right.
are you applying? Are you catering to their style? All that's important.
Yeah, internships are also incredibly competitive because there's so few of them out there available
Yeah,
and so many people graduating at the same time. So a lot of the times it's not about you, Tom, maybe about just how many have much demand, and so it's not a reason to give up on your animation career. There's so many reasons to not get an internship. It doesn't have to mean that your work is not good enough.
And you have to remember to cater, because
Cater.
some people have different portfolios for different studios. It's not always the same one they send out.
Yeah, you have to have several ones. And I know that when you're a student, you have only your student work.
Yeah.
Mike, do you recommend, if you are coming in strictly from school,
Yeah.
to add non-school work in there, like maybe some one-offs that you've done with some friends or something?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Like even when I graduated from going to school, they were like, probably none of this you'll use in your portfolio unless it's really good. But most of that good stuff comes when you're inspired and it wasn't a class assignment and you're doing something on your own that you like. That's
Right,
when all your passion comes in. That's where you can see it in your work, because you're still learning during that time. Because every scene or shot or animation you do after the one you did in school is going to be better than that. So usually people don't get worse; they get better. So anything you do after that, it's gonna be plus. Or
right.
you can go back to your work. Like let's say you did a scene in Maya, like you can go back and make it better, plus it, add stuff, render it, make it look nice.
How often should somebody starting out, do you think, how often should they be updating their portfolio? You shouldn't stay static.
I mean, at least once a year, I think,
Right.
at least.
And not to
Because
mention like tailoring it every time it's going out to a specific job, tailoring
right,
to that job.
yeah, and if you're not doing it once a year, that means your stuff is getting old and it's not getting updated, and things change. Software changes. People can tell when you haven't worked on a portfolio for a long time.
Right. Yes, yes, people can know that, especially when your stuff lives online. Don't let it just sit there because, I have my websites, it's done.
Yeah.
When you're starting out, it's like a work in progress the whole time. I have some questions here that I'm gonna get to. Let me see. Are TV cartoons filmed at 12 FPS and animated movies at 24 FPS?
No, we're actually 24.
All right.
Yeah, we go standard animation. I think anime does 4. So that's why it's a little different, but everything else is usually 24, at least for us.
Jacqueline Escobar is about to start learning Toon Boom. What's your advice for somebody starting to learn?
I mean, have you if they've done stuff traditional, just try to do that traditional stuff in there. Don't try to focus on like the crazy tools on this thing. Just take it simple, one step at a time. Like I did with that bouncing ball. Just do it all on one layer, and then you can start adding layers and messing with
Yeah,
the
that's one
software
question
itself.
she had earlier about when you do the in-betweens,
Mhm.
do you use the same layer or do you keep adding new ones?
Uh, I if it's the same character, then yeah, all on the same layer.
Perfect. Is knowing how to draw backgrounds important to be an animator? A question from Abril.
It's a plus, but not important. I mean, as long as you know how things move in 3D, like let's say you have, let me go on the background layer here. Like let's say that's the horizon line, right? Like you need to know how things move. Let's say you have a box here. As long as you know that box, you follow the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of know how like things move in space.
Right.
And knowing your background usually helps with that. So if you can move your characters or objects, whatever you're animating, in real-time space, then that's when it's important. But you don't have to be like a beautiful, background designer artist.
As I understand that there's artists who do that in
Yes.
animation teams, just the background.
Yeah, so sometimes we'll have, our character layer here. Again, this person just happens to look like Homer. It's on him. So we'll provide like, like something like that. I mean, a little more neater than this, but we'll give him like the horizon line. Like, let's say it's right there, and we'll give him like, little rough outlines, and then they'll go from here and then draw in all the details of the background and make that look, beautiful.
I have a question here in the chat. What do you think about doing a character in other programs like Photoshop and then animate it in Toon Boom, or versus drawing it directly on Toon Boom the way you're, doing it now?
You mean doing all the drawings in Photoshop?
Yeah, like what do you think about bringing in characters you've done in Photoshop?
I mean, you just you're creating more work for yourself if you do all the drawings in Photoshop and then import them. I'm like, you can't do it, but then you can't get the onion skin, as we call it. Like, if we draw here, if we go to the next frame, we could see the previous drawing.
Right.
Like, I don't know if there's scripts for Photoshop for that, but this is like all in the software.
So there are benefits to doing it all.
Yeah, so you could see like a previous drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could see your arcs, where they're going.
Right.
And then you don't have to import every drawing one at a time. And then because you would literally have to pick this box, import the drawing, pick that box, import the drawing. Like, I don't know. For me, it doesn't make sense.
Well, that makes sense. Looks like it's the onion, what's it called? The onion skin feature?
Onion skin feature, yeah.
Yeah, I see why that would be very useful.
Yeah. So I definitely 100% recommend drawing in Toon Boom if you have it.
Yeah. Mike, have you ever animated on Clip Studio Paint or used Paint?
I have never used it, no. A lot of people use it that I know, and I'm more of the Photoshop guy because that's what I learned on.
Well, for those of you out there who are looking for an alternative to Photoshop, I love Clip Studio Paint, and they are just really great. And they're a great alternative. I highly recommend it. And they do have animation incorporated. Let's see. Nick is asking, if you're creating your portfolio to cater a certain studio and you have your portfolio as a website, do you make different pages for each studio you're catering to?
Unless you can make the page private and just give them the link to that. Most people right now don't even have websites anymore. Some of them have links to, let's say, like a Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
They share, their portfolio with the images, and they'll share the video of their demo reel. That's how I've been doing it recently. Right. So I just have a Dropbox that I have my reel in and my sketches, drawings. Of course, I haven't updated mine for the last 6-7 years because I've been back on the show. But
I don't know if I'm gonna put you in the spot, but I kind of want to see your old reel.
I don't even want to see my old reel. I don't even know where it is.
Well,
I'd have to download it.
You keep talking about these reels. I'm like, well, can we see some reel? If you in the chat, if you have a reel, I would love to see one. You should link me to it. But let's talk about reels a little bit, Mike. How long do these reels, if you start out, like, don't even know, like, how long should they be?
It could be 3 shots, maybe a minute long, even less than a minute, but it should be your best work. Like, don't show something you're kind of proud of and like just using it for filler. Like, this should be your best stuff that you're proud of. So
nothing filler. This is not like,
yeah,
some weird,
like, no padding.
No padding.
Like if you only have 3 really, really good things you want to show them, like 3 really good animations, then just have those in.
Yes. Think of that last artist that had released an album and he only had 1 good song and you were pissed.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the perfect analogy.
Yeah, so no padding, no filler. just the good stuff. So if you're only proud of 3 pieces, what do you do? Do you loop those 3 pieces over and over? Like, is it
Or make them better. You can
okay?
make them go back and make them better.
So somebody, hiring manager or an internship, leader or whatever, looking at these reels, it's not like they're saying, I'm only looking at reels that contain five or more projects. There's no like limit or anything like that.
No, not that I know of. I don't think so. Like they don't want just one thing. But usually from all the recruiters I've heard, they look for about like 1 to 3 minutes. Like no more than that, because they have to look at hundreds of these. So if
Yeah.
they're sitting there, they don't want to have to skip through your stuff because like, oh, they're like 5 minutes. I'm not looking through that. I got too many to look through. So just make them short and sweet. I suggest maybe like a minute and a half,
Okay.
like just to get their attention. For them to want to see more. And if they want to see more, they'll definitely like that's when they contact you. Be like, hey, we'd like to see more of your stuff. So on. That's when they get
So
in contact with you.
yeah. Do you have any advice for beginners starting to master lighting and shadows in their animation? Those can be a challenge.
Like in CG or in 2D?
Let's wait for our person. So Tiris, what did you mean? I didn't ask this question. I'm just reading it, so I don't want to speak for them.
Okay.
But maybe answer both.
For CG, that's like a whole different department.
Yeah.
I mean, even for 2D, but for CG, like literally, that's the person's job. That's all they do. But for 2D, like lighting is really important too, because it could set the mood for everything.
It's part of the story. It's so much part of the story. Yeah.
So like something that's like candlelit will set a different mood than something that's like a bright room,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure exactly what the question is. Is it how does one get into that, or?
Let's see if they have a more elaborate question. But they were just wondering what kind of advice you had if you were just starting.
Oh,
is it is lighting and shadow something that's you should be
that's something definitely important to story.
Definitely.
100%.
Let's see. As a beginner animator wanting to post my work online, what can I do, Mike, to avoid animation theft? I think you covered it a little bit. Maybe you can elaborate more. You talked about having.
I mean, honestly, I know you're excited to post stuff, but if you're gonna post things like you're working on as student work and beginner stuff, like when people are looking you up, that might come up, and you really don't want them to see your beginning work because they're gonna be like, oh, this guy or this girl doesn't know what they're doing. Like, what is this? Like, if you show like beginning stuff, because they're not gonna know where to look if you don't give them like a portfolio. So I would keep like practice stuff, posting stuff, maybe just show your friends and family.
Right.
Because that's what they always told us in school too. Because once you put it out there in the internet and your name's on there, like people could search that.
Well, I am not an animator, guys, but I do curate art for a very large creative brand. And I disagree with Mike Etniel. I like to see progress. I love nothing more than going to an artist's page, their timeline, their Instagram, and seeing where they started and where they are now. Obviously, if I go to their website, I don't want to see student work, or I don't want to see trials. But on their social media, where they're telling their story, their art journey, I do not mind seeing progress.
Oh, well, yeah, I agree. But I mean, someone who's not there yet. And
but how, Mike, how do you get feedback if you don't put all that bad stuff out there to get other people to look at it and critique it? How do you get better?
It's a gray area for me. Only because in school they told us that like studios will look you up, will look at your socials, and sometimes they'll see stuff and they won't know when you did it.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be careful with that stuff, I guess. Like use your own discretion.
Yeah, you may find somebody like me at those studios who appreciate,
Yeah.
that stuff. But
Or you
again,
could be like, or you could title it, like learning this or
the early days,
trial. Yeah.
might be early days. Yeah. What I have seen some artists do is have sort of like their personal persona on social media, and then maybe their brand. In this case, like I Draw Homer versus Mike Admiel. So in I Draw Homer, I would expect really professional work, really polished. That's his brand. But if I go to follow Mike Admiel, I may see some of his, his funny work, his unfinished pieces.
Yeah.
So maybe have different personas. Jordan Weaver is asking, any advice on getting the experience required by most studios? The college I went to had no internships.
I mean, it's unfortunate that not every college is connected, but I wouldn't give up just because of that. I would still contact studios for internship programs because most of them still offer it. But just be persistent. I mean, don't do it like every week, If you get rejected or they don't get back to you, I maybe wait like a month or two. Or if they do reject you, maybe wait 3 or 4 months, because usually every 3 or 4 months, that's when they switch like terms. I'd update your work and resend it out.
Yeah. Also, step away from studios too and look at other places that you can tell stories. There's a lot of brands
Yeah.
like Wacom that rely on the work of animators to tell stories. A different kind of story, but
Right.
you get some chops. Is it important to take a life drawing class? Emmanuel is asking.
100%.
You guys gotta do it. There's no way around it.
It's again, that's how you get to know how the body works as gestures, as how even muscles connect, joints connect, how they can move. Because some people draw some weird stuff, and it's like us experienced animators will see it, be like, well, that's not how that joint moves. Like the arm doesn't bend that way, but to the trained eye, we would see that and know that, oh, this person probably doesn't do enough life drawing or doesn't know how the body mechanics work.
Yep. I have a question here. Can a single person do a short film by themselves?
Yes.
Approximately, how long does it take them?
That all depends. It's all relative to what the project is. It could take someone a year to 2 years to 3 years to do a short story. Just depending like on how long it is, how experienced you are. Like let's say if you're gonna do something that's a minute long, that's well, I'm just using a minute. There's no real short story a minute long, but just for that minute, you have 24 frames per second in animation. So let's say 72 drawings is only 3 seconds long. So do the math. Like the math of that is, so when you go to minutes, it's going to be even longer.
Yeah, there's so many variables.
Yeah. So you have to do the animation, then you have to do the line work, then you have to do the coloring, and then the compositing for the background.
The sound.
So, yeah, even sound.
The music, all that's part of the.
I'm not saying you can do it. I mean, you can't do it, but I'm saying it'll take a lot of time. And if it's something you just want a quick result with, it's not going to happen. I mean, unless you're doing like Flash, where you have a character and all you're doing is like moving him like a puppet.
Yeah. Seems to me like animation is a teamwork thing. Like it's better when it's done in teams, because then you can break responsibilities and tasks, because a single short can, like you said, just take an enormous amount of time.
And that also it depends on style. If something's really simple, like stick figures or like something that's not complicated, it can be done faster.
Oh yeah.
But if something if it's like more cartoony, like Looney Tunes, like stuff like that, that's gonna take a long
Yeah.
time.
Well, take a look, guys. I hear right here in the chat, I shared a really cool show that we produced last summer with Mike Morris. It's called Cartoon Crunch. And he led a group of two groups of 8 students each. I think it was 8 students each. And they had 1 week, or I think it was, yeah, short 8 days. They had to make a short. And they documented the entire experience. So this group of students, beginners in animation, with the help of some mentors, were able to pull off a minute-long short in 8 days. And you can check out how they did it. They broke down each part of the process in a really neat way. So it may be a nice learning experience for you. I highly recommend you watch Cartoon Crunch, because what you're asking, Jacqueline, they actually did it. They did a short film, but this was not a single person. They had to break it down. Some people were doing backgrounds, animation, illustration, just because so many moving parts go into it. When
Yeah, I mean, if you have a team of friends that are interested in this, I definitely recommend that.
Mike, in your team alone, how many people work in an episode?
So we usually have about 6 average 6 character animators and 2 background artists
Right. So it's a
for
lot of
each
people.
episode. But then usually we'll get help because shows will finish. We'll get some extra people for a couple of weeks, and then we'll move on to the next show, and that we'll start off with 6 again, and they'll add more towards the end to wrap up.
Right. Mike, to your knowledge, do you have to be in college to receive an internship, or can you receive internships while in high school?
I received my first one right out of high school.
Okay.
So it's like some places are willing, you don't have to be in college for it, but most places probably do want to see that you are going to like some kind of, art school or film school. So it depends on the studio. Like I got lucky. They didn't really need it.
Yeah. Obviously, there's also those outliers who didn't go to animation school and are great animators too. There are some people, amazing outliers out there, who skip all the rules and still make it. I love it. Let's see. So you mentioned that you're a big gamer, and somebody's curious about what you're playing right now.
Oh, I mostly play Sea of Thieves at the moment.
Oh,
So I think we had this conversation last time. Like I've always been into
yes.
pirates
That's why you were
since I was a
drawing
kid. Yeah.
I
So
love it.
ever since that pirate game came out, that's all I've been playing. It's my second life now.
Look at that. I mean, Shirley's Homer. You do draw Homer every single day. It looks like it. So guys, we have a few more minutes with Mike. Send me your questions. I want you to also follow Mike. He goes by I Draw Homer on Instagram. I also want to encourage you to share your reels with me here in the chat if you have one. Love to take a look and get to know your work. And also take a look at our Cartoon Crunch mini series, because I think it's really cool. And it can show you how different people starting out in animation, how they tackle this one challenge. It says, do you need to take a live? Okay, Emmanuel, Mike already answered that. Yes, it helps a lot when you take a live drawing class to be an animator. It is absolutely crucial that you learn from life. It's possibly the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there any place I can take a course online ASAP? Yes, Jacqueline, there's a lot of places online already offering classes. I know places like, I don't know where you're from, but places like Creana, Domestika, even Adobe has classes online. Independent artists like the ones I mentioned, Travis Blaze has his own project called Sketch to Animate. You can take classes there. Wacom, we have a ton of webinars in our website too that you can get started with. You know, if you're just starting and you don't know how deep you want to get into it, maybe take advantage of those resources. Chris Connor is telling us about I don't know how to pronounce that, Udemy.com. Mike, help me. I am too Mexican for this. Udemy. It's UDEMY.
Udemy.
Udemy.com. There you go. I'm sorry. Udemy.com has some classes. I know places like Koreana as well. So definitely, Jacqueline, there's a lot of, or you can convince Mike to do a Twitch class one day as well.
I have done that sometimes, but usually I'm just doing more of like illustration than animating. Because animating is too long of a process to do on a stream, and people usually get bored because it's really tedious work, rather than doing this one pretty little illustration.
Right. Is there something you wish you knew at the first, you know, when you started your first internship as an animator, Mike? Something you wish you
I
knew?
mean, obviously, I wish I was as good as I am now when I first started, but it's just, you know, the nature of this business. You're just going to get better and better. That's a tricky question. There's something I
Something you
wish I
you
knew.
Well, the programs possibly, because I bet
Well, I mean, yeah,
you were not as fast as you are now. You can whip so many
but
things.
even that, after a couple of weeks, you start getting really used to it.
I bet you wish you had a Cintiq.
That definitely, yes. I used to dream of having this, and then I finally got one.
Did you start with a tablet, with an opaque tablet like an Intuos, or did you always draw on screen?
When I was doing 3D modeling and 3D animation, I started with the Intuos, and then it wasn't until I got back on the show, and I started using Cintiqs because that's what we use at work.
Very cool. Does the size of the screen matter to you?
To me, yes, because coming from working on paper and doing like these big lines and because we have our animation paper is like this size. It was like 14 by 17. Oh no, 11 by 14. Sorry. So that's big paper that we used to draw on. So the size of the 24 Pro is like pretty much the same size as that paper.
Yeah.
So it's like I never changed. So I don't have to like, you know, draw smaller or anything. It feels like I'm drawing on the same size paper as we used to.
That's great.
In animation, you're always doing like the big strokes.
Yeah. Do you have multiple things on your screen? Like, do you have a reference window? Do you
yeah, so I have a couple other monitors that I put up.
Right.
So one will have, you know, my reference. Let's say it's a new character that we haven't drawn before. Because usually with the family, we've drawn them so many times, we don't even have to look at the reference anymore.
Right.
But let's say there's a new character and like we don't know what it looks like. I'll have one monitor, you know, to have that. One monitor will have my storyboards, and then maybe, you know, have something in the background like The Office or something. Like sometimes like you'll pick up funny things. I don't watch anything new though. I know a lot of people don't like to watch movies. They say it's bad, but if you watch or listen to something that you've seen so many times, you don't have to look up, you just hear it.
Yeah.
So I'll always have that like playing in the background. This is some background noise.
Makes sense. Love it.
Except when I'm doing a new scene and I have to concentrate and listen to the acting, then that, you know, that's full concentration mode.
How is it working with guest animators, Mike?
It's fun. It really is. Like I got to animate Eric Idle, who was on Monty Python. So I grew up watching this guy on that show. And then here we are, we have an episode with him doing a guest voice, and I got to do some of his scenes. So it almost made us like, it felt like we were like colleagues. So I went from being like a super fan to like pretty much working with this person.
Can we know your Twitch username? Abril wants
Uh,
to follow you.
oh, my Twitch one is Deep Sea Homer. So yeah, that's
Deep
uh,
sea,
like
can
deep
you
sea
write it
fishing.
down? Write it
Yeah,
down there.
here we go.
Well, you can draw it on your Harmony so it can be perpetually there.
Oh, I was gonna put the link in.
Okay, put it in there. Thank you, guys.
There we
But
go.
remember, he's mostly there gaming, Abril.
Yeah,
I don't
that's.
know that he's going to teach you animation.
Like I said, maybe once a week I'll do like illustrations,
You should do it.
and
Oh,
I do Simpson stuff over there because it's more like fan art type stuff, and it's not production
okay.
work. So
I shared it here because Mike just shared it with panelists, so I shared it with everybody.
oh, okay.
There you go. Mike, have you watched every single Simpson episode ever?
Except the ones I work on because I'm seeing it as we're working on it. So
Okay.
usually by the time it's over, I'm so sick of that I don't want to see it. Maybe one day I'll go back and watch all the ones I worked on.
Are you afraid you're gonna catch a mistake or something? Or are you just
Well,
literally
that too.
sick of it?
No, we have a whole other department that catches those mistakes.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I was
So
gonna ask
it's
how
called
much
retakes.
retake.
So they'll go through the animation when it comes back in color. Any mistakes there's a whole other team that does those fixes.
Can you name a few common mistakes that they're trained to catch?
Like color, something might be colored wrong. Something might be rendered or composited on the wrong layer. There could be missing poses. Like the mouth could be not registered to the character correctly. Like little like technical stuff like that. Or sometimes, there's rewrites and the show's already done, but it's about to air in like a couple of weeks. So there's new shots that have to be done like right away.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll do that during that time.
Very cool. I'm glad you have a little cushion, a little, like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Heather wants to know, how much did you have to watch and talk to Eric in order to perfect his mannerisms when it came to animating him?
Well, I mean, he was playing a different character. He wasn't playing Eric Idle. So I think his name was Desmond on the show. So it was just his voice. So this was a
Yeah,
whole new character. So we didn't really have to reference, Eric Idle as
right. Okay.
himself.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but if it was the case, if it is guest characters, like when it's actually them in the show, not a whole new character, then yeah, we would watch their mannerisms. Like we did that for who's the name? I always forget his name. The guy who created The Office, the English guy.
Who?
Um,
Help us chat.
someone's gonna get it before I do.
The chat's smart.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais. There we go.
Ricky Gervais, yeah.
So he was on our show as him.
Thank you.
So we actually did watch a lot of his stuff, and we got his little mannerisms from watching his version of The Office.
Yeah.
That was fun to do.
I love that. I don't know if you can answer this, but if it's allowed under your NDA, how long does it take you guys to animate an episode of The Simpsons?
Oh, that's on NDA. So that's our part of it is about 6 months, the animation part. I think so total it's like a baby. It's like 9 months.
Oh my goodness, one episode, 9 months.
From conception to finished. So this is from the writing stage to the board stage, to animation, cleanup, color, and then all that. But probably the animation part is 6 months.
That is crazy. That's amazing. Now you're gonna have a new appreciation for every episode you watch. I have a question from Dennis on Facebook. I'm gonna read it to you. It's a little long. Hi there. I want you to ask, when it comes to The Simpsons, red flag, I don't know if you're gonna be able to answer it. In the newer season, I noticed there's a lot of shadows in the faces and almost on everything. When it comes to portfolios, do companies care about details in 2D animation, such as shadows, shading, and coloring? Or do they care more
No,
about the flow and the smoothness of drawings?
they care more about, the acting, the emotion. Like that stuff is all done later on. Like that's for the finished product. Like if you're going as an animator, if you're going as a lighter and effects, then yeah. If you're going for an animator, you don't have to worry about that. Just show really good acting, really strong, silhouettes in your drawings, um, great performances, great like movement, fluidity. Like that's what they want to see.
Perfect. So we talked a lot about prepping your portfolio, developing your style. Lastly, I do want to touch on something that you mentioned in our chat earlier regarding the right types of personalities or
Yeah,
developing the right personality traits to make it in the animation film
yeah. I mean, I
and
don't want.
animation industry.
So I mean, don't be an a-hole is the main the main point.
Play
Uh,
nice.
yeah, I mean, because this is not your own project. You're going to be working on something that is somebody else's, dream project, their passion, and you're gonna have to take criticism. Like, not everything you do is gonna be wanted or appreciated, and you have to learn how to, accept that. Like, if you had something and somebody didn't do it to your vision, you're gonna tell them no, it's wrong. Like, redo it, or you're gonna give it to somebody else, and you can't take it personally.
Right.
Like, you have to be able to work with everybody. Uh, Definitely put your ego aside, because a lot of people get their egos hurt when something they do doesn't make it into the show or has to be redone. But they just have to know it's not personal. Or like I know of people that a director won't work with them because of their personality. It's like if their personality is too like egotistical, or they're too show offy, or they have just a bad attitude, that can cost them like a job because nobody wants to work with them. They would rather go with someone who knows what they're doing, is a delight to work with, like super friendly, and doesn't talk back, doesn't argue, doesn't like to butt heads, than someone who's like amazing but has a bad attitude. They would rather take the person that's okay at what he does than the person that's great.
That's right. Remember that the animation industry creates the illusion of
Yeah,
being huge, but it's actually really, really small and everybody
it's
knows each other.
extremely small.
Yes, everybody knows each other and the word spreads fast and nobody wants to work with people who alienate teams and divide teams. So personality is really important when you're starting out because you're starting to build your reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Lastly, I know that we're all stuck at home these days because of COVID, but as the world returns to normal, there are communities, there are events. Mike, can you speak about some of the things that they can, people starting out do to network? I know that, I've met you at CTN. I know that things like Lightbox and those events have digital versions of the event coming up.
uh
What do you recommend in terms of networking? This is, like I said, very small
yeah, I mean,
world.
like I said, that's how we met. I mean, it's probably the most important thing you could do. You never know who you're gonna meet. Like, someone could get you your next job, and it's someone you met at a con, and you struck up a conversation, and you guys have so much in common, and you're just really friendly. And that person could be a recruiter at an animation studio, and then next thing you know, that person's hiring you for a job or an internship. So stuff like that's always important. Networking is, besides having a really good portfolio, that's like the next important thing in this industry.
It's who you know and how much they like you too.
Yeah.
Emmanuel says, is CalArts a good idea because it's a requirement for work at Disney, but you work for Disney because the Simpsons were bought by them? So,
I was at Disney. I mean, I was at Simpsons before Disney bought them.
okay.
So I mean, again, just because you're from CalArts doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job at Disney. It just helps because of the partnership. But you can be at any school and just be recognized. You don't have to go to CalArts to work for Disney, but it's definitely a plus.
Definitely a plus. Let's see. Life is wild, Heather. Yeah, we're just reading anecdotes of people, how people have met each other. Yes, we have met incredibly talented animators at these events. That's why Malcolm attends these events, because we're seeking talent, and this is where the talent is. Not to say that you have to go to these events. There's tons of other smaller venues and even digital communities. There's so many animators with communities out there, bringing Black stories to the focus, just really diversifying stories and trying to diversify animation as a whole, as an industry. Mike, what excites you as the world moves forward after post-COVID? What excites you in animation?
Just going back to the studio, having that interaction with colleagues. One thing I miss is I'll walk over to my friend's cubicle and I'll see what they're working on. Sometimes I get inspired. Like we're missing that right now, and it really sucks. So I'm really excited to get back in that studio environment. Talk about your work with other artists, show your work to fellow artists. Get feedback in person. Have those talks at lunch. Go. It's all that social stuff that's really missing from this job.
In terms of industry developments and projects or software coming out, is anything that is exciting you?
I mean, the Toon Boom keeps getting better and better every time, so I'm excited to see the next version of that.
Very cool. And on a personal note, what amazing animation projects out there are inspiring you and making you go, wow?
Definitely, I'm loving those Pixar shorts.
Yeah,
those are so good. If you have I mean, I guess it's only Disney Plus right now, but those shorts on there are amazing. Story-wise, animation-wise, those are really inspiring. And I just saw a couple of weeks ago, I saw I can't think of the name. I'm really bad with names, but it's the movie with the jazz piano guy.
Oh yeah, I saw it too. I'm so bad with the name. Guys, remind us. Chat.
Soul, they got it.
So,
man,
I cried.
There were some parts in that film where I forgot it was a cartoon.
Yes.
It just looked and felt like the texture, seeing how far technology has come to where that one scene where they're actually playing at the venue, they're doing that practice. It looks real. It looks like they're in a real environment. Yeah. And that kind of stuff really excites me, because I'm like, man, it's only gonna get better from here.
It is, and you guys get to be the future of it. I do hope that anybody watching here who is starting out in animation gets to go forward and do what they love and have some fun doing it. Please follow Mike, ask him more questions on his Instagram, bug him, because he loves it. And I know that he has some free time now, so go say hi to him. Yeah. Go say hi to him on Instagram. We are at an hour and a half. We're going to wrap this webinar up. Mike, any wrapping thoughts, any parting advice you want to give to our audience here and on Facebook?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's like trying to concise everything I said into one little sentence. Just remember,
I asked you to write 5 takeaways.
Yeah, I basically said them all.
Good.
the questions.
Well,
so the principles of animation, like I said, one of the first things I showed you was the principle of spacing and how that can affect your animation. There's things like I'm not going to go over all 12, but squash and stretch, appeal, all that is a part of that, because that's a whole other seminar. It's just the principles.
Yeah,
Like we said, have a workable personality. Don't be an a-hole.
that's very important.
Know where you're applying. Remember, cater to the studio. Always stay motivated. For people that want story and storyboarding, I highly recommend watching Hitchcock films. Like North by Northwest is really good. Birds is really good. Rear Window is really good. Like my favorite thing about Hitchcock was his staging. So that's one thing I recommend. And internship programs, look into them. Like try to find out who's hiring interns. How to get in is, just dependent on each of those studios, but that's probably the most important thing is getting your foot into that door. Like that's priceless.
It is. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for trying to condense years and years of experience and your personal insights in an hour and a half. I know that it's always nice to chat with you and share your insight. But I know that you're always sharing this stuff also on your channel. So please, guys, go follow and support Mike Atneo. Follow each other too. Share your Instagrams here and make sure that you're networking every day. Thank you so much, everybody.
I could do one last homer before everybody leaves. I'll just do one.
Do one home. Oh my, you're so fast. Let's see.
I'm not going to do the construction for it.
I remember, and it was in San Diego Comic-Con 2 years ago. You turned me into a Simpson.
Oh yeah.
You made me look so angry, and I'm so nice.
You were yelling at us.
I was yelling at you. It was really loud in there. I love how you always start with the eyes. He told me you always start with the two balls.
There we go. That's a sloppy little homer.
Oh my God. Lovely in just a few lines. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This was really fun.
Of course. Thank you, Tom, for helping me. This is a wrap and we're done.